Hey everyone, I'm Melanie from Streamlined Legal, where we help law firms get the most out of their practice management software. Tonight we are talking about the time that you are writing off. Now, I have to say upfront, I am not a big proponent of writing off time. I think that as attorneys, a lot of times we write off too much time, and oftentimes we are not collecting what we are owed or what we've agreed to be paid because we feel bad or we think it took too long or something like that. So in general, I'm not a big fan of that, but I do know that there are situations, of course, where it's necessary. So for example, I'm thinking of times like where we're trying to train an associate or times where we need to correct a mistake or something like that. It does happen, right? And so tonight we're going to talk about how you can track the amount of time that you are writing off on a bill in Clio. And so I want to walk you through an easy way to do that because unfortunately, the Clio reporting does not come with a report that shows that. And so we do want to be able to come up with a way that we can see that and track that within Clio. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to head over to our Clio screen. And the first thing that you're going to see is that I'm going to navigate over to the Activities tab. And while Clio doesn't have a report for it, you can get a lot of data out of this Activities tab, and I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that. And so if we come over to Activities here, we can see that we've got some time entries, and you'll see it automatically defaults to My Time Entries. But keep in mind, I can filter this for any time period and I can filter it for any user as well. So right now I've got it filtered for this month so far, so April 1st to April 22nd. And I'm going to go ahead and filter it not just for me, but for all users. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that filter. Now I'm seeing all of the firm's time entries from April 1st until today. Now, of course, this is a demo account. We don't have a ton of information in here, but let's pretend like these are all of the time entries. And so what I can do here now is I can go ahead and have a activity category. And if I create an activity category for my reduced time, let's say, then I can go ahead and filter for it. So for example, I'll show you what that looks like and then I'll show you how we're going to make it. So if I go to all of our time entries for the month, for the whole firm, and I come over here to filter, I can filter for an activity category called reduced time, right? So anytime I write down a time entry, I'm going to put this activity category on it called reduced time. And now when I apply my filter, I can see only those time entries where we reduce the time. Okay. And so keep in mind, these are not going to show up on a bill because I marked them as non-billable. So in practice, this is how this works, right? I'm going to come over to my manage categories up here in the upper right, and I'm going to add a new category. It's a time entry category, and I'm going to call it reduced time or something to that effect, right? And whoops, sorry. When I do that, I put in the name, I put in my billing method. I'm just going to use the default user, the user default rate, and everyone has permission. I'm going to save that category. And now it's going to go ahead and list that alphabetically. So I've got my reduced time, and it's an hourly thing, right? So now what happens is, let's say I'm reviewing time. I'll come over to my activities and I'm reviewing time again for the whole firm. And I find that one of my associates drafted a petition for divorce and it took them 3 hours. This was a very simple divorce. This is a new associate that should not have taken them 3 hours. Clearly, there's a learning curve here that we need to adjust for and take into account. So instead of charging my client $900 to draft this petition, that probably should have taken about an hour, I'm going to come over here and edit this time entry. And I'm going to put it down, instead of 3 hours, I'm going to make it 1 hour, right? And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And that's the time entry that's going to show up now on the client's bill, is 1 hour to draft the petition at $300. And that's a total of $300 we're billing them, right? But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come here and I'm going to duplicate this time entry, right? So it shows me all the same stuff, but instead I'm going to make it 2 hours because that was the amount of time that I wrote off, right? I was writing off 2 hours. And I'm going to go ahead here and come to find my activity category called reduced time. And I'm going to go ahead and their rate was $300. I'm going to make it non-billable so that it doesn't show up on the bill. And I'm going to save that time entry. And so now what you see is I've got my 1 hour to draft the petition for the divorce. That's going to go on the bill. And then I've got 2 hours under reduced time, and I left the same draft petition for divorce description. And now I'm writing off $600, right? 2 hours. So now what I can do is I can put the 1 hour on the bill, and the reduced time is non-billable, so it will not show up on the bill. So that's how I can address when I'm reducing time on a bill. I can make a separate time entry by duplicating the first time entry and account for that reduction in time on that second time entry. What that does now is when I come to my time entries and I filter for this month and I filter for the reduced time, right? I'm going to go find my activity category called reduced time and apply that. Now I'm only going to find the situations where I went and reduced time. So now, and I've got the description here still, and I've got who it was and how much time it was. So I can go ahead and go back to those people, and let's say this is my associate, I can go back and start training them on how to prepare a petition, right? And try and get that speed increased. Maybe there's some templates or tools we can help them with or give them in order to do that. And I can look at all the other reduced time and try and figure out how much time was it, and are there any steps we need to take to prevent this for the future, right? What are the red flags? What are the learning opportunities? What are the things that we can do to prevent this, right? So this allows me to be able to track that information and see how much reduced time I have. Now, bonus points, if I also want to find the time that I didn't just reduce, I just wrote it off completely, right? Like we're just not even going to charge for that. I can make another activity category, and this time I'm going to call it something like, written off time. So instead of just a reduction in time, I just completely wrote it off. Sometimes it might be helpful for me to distinguish between the two. So then I can come in here to my filters, and I can again filter for everybody from April 1st to today. And instead of the reduced time, I can filter for my written off time, right? And so let me find that category here. Excellent. And I apply that filter, and those are the time entries that are going to show up now, right? And so this activity category makes it really easy for me to be able to see the different time that I'm writing off and reducing and being able to take action on that. The alternative, by the way, that I see a lot of firms doing is a lot of firms will just simply delete the time entry, in which case we can't see it at all and we can't track it at all. Or I'll also see them create it as a non-billable time entry, which is okay because then it's still there, right? But then a lot of times we have non-billable time entries that aren't actually written off time or aren't actually reduced time, right? They're things that we never intended to bill for in the first place, right? So this is why I think that the activity categories of reduced time or written off time are definitely going to serve you better in this way, so that now I can use those filters in the activities, find all of those time entries. And by the way, I can also export that data from Clio as well. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it'll enable you to be able to better track the time that you're writing off and be able to get a lot more information about that in order to make changes within your firm. Thanks for joining me tonight. Have a great evening.